Major warning to XRP holders that what's happening with XRP right now should be raising alarm bells for every single holder. And I mean everyone from longtime XRP Army members to the people who just bought their first bag last week. There's a lot going on beneath the surface. Some of it subtle, some of it obvious, but all of it is important. And if you're ignoring these signals, you could be walking into a trap. Now, before anyone jumps in the comments with FUD or "you're spreading fear," let me say this clearly. This isn't about hate or panic. This is about protecting your capital, understanding the evolving risk, and knowing what game you're actually playing with XRP today. Because the environment for XRP has changed. Not just the price action, which we'll talk about, but the regulatory, technological, and even psychological landscape around this asset. If you're still operating on the same assumptions from 2021 or even 2018, you're playing an outdated strategy in a completely different arena. Let's start with the elephant in the room, the SEC lawsuit. Yes, Ripple did win a significant victory when the judge ruled that XRP was not a security when sold on public exchanges. That was a huge deal. But here's the problem: people interpret it that as a total win. It wasn't. The case is not over. The SEC is still pursuing legal action against Ripple's executives, including Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson. Penalties are still on the table. Appeals are still possible. And there's still no clear regulatory framework for how XRP and crypto at large will be treated by the next administration. What does that mean? It means uncertainty. And markets hate uncertainty. Institutions, the ones everyone hopes, will buy XRP in bulk, tend to wait on the sidelines until they have clarity. And we simply don't have that yet. XRP is operating under a kind of legal gray cloud. Not as dark as before, but far from clear skies. Then there's the issue of performance. Let's just be honest. XRP is not performing like a top 10 crypto should. When you look at the charts, XRP hasn't broken its all-time high since 2018. Meanwhile, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, even meme coins like Dogecoin have made significant moves. But XRP, still stuck under $1. And look, I get the long-term utility argument. I know there's a case to be made for Ripple's technology, its partnerships, its focus on cross-border payments. But let's not confuse fundamentals with price action. The reality is, XRP has been lagging behind the rest of the market in a big way. And that's not just because of the SEC case. It's also about demand. Demand for XRP hasn't exploded the way some people hoped it would after the legal decision. And that brings us to the next issue: on-chain activity and whale behavior. There's been some troubling signs from on-chain data. Recently, we've seen large XRP holders, wallets with millions of tokens, moving funds onto exchanges. And that's usually not a bullish sign. You don't move large amounts of crypto to exchanges unless you're considering selling. And this isn't just a one-off. It's been happening consistently, in waves. Think about what that means. While retail investors, people like you and me, are buying, hyping, and holding, the big players might be exiting. Quietly, methodically. And that's something you need to pay attention to. Because if you're buying while whales are selling, you're not accumulating. You're providing them with liquidity to exit. Now let's zoom out and look at Ripple itself. Ripple, the company, has always been the backbone of the XRP narrative. Their pitch has always been, XRP is the bridge currency. It's faster and cheaper than SWIFT. It's the future of cross-border transactions. That's the story that got a lot of people to invest. But recently, Ripple's strategy has been shifting. They're no longer pushing on-demand liquidity, ODL, as hard as before. Instead, they're talking more about tokenized real-world assets, CBDC infrastructure, and, notably, stablecoins. Ripple has announced plans to launch their own USD-backed stablecoin. Think about what that implies. If Ripple is focusing on building stablecoin solutions and real-world asset tokenization, and if their partners, like central banks or financial institutions, prefer to use Ripple's new products instead of XRP, what happens to XRP demand? It could decline, or stagnate, or at best, become redundant for the very institutions it was supposed to serve. Now I know there's going to be people saying, but Ripple has already partnered with over 300 financial institutions worldwide. Yes, they have. But partnerships don't equal adoption. And adoption doesn't always translate into price appreciation, especially if the token becomes less central to the product. That leads us into another critical issue, the XRP community itself. There's no easy way to say this, but it needs to be said. The XRP community, or at least a loud segment of it, has developed something of an echo chamber. And that echo chamber is fueled by hopium, riddles, conspiracy theories, and vague promises of a $10,000 XRP that you've seen the theories. XRP is chosen by the IMF. XRP will be used in every central bank. XRP is backed by gold. Bearable Guy 123 said this. The flip of the switch is coming. None of that is grounded in reality. And while it might feel good to believe that you're holding a chosen asset, it's dangerous to confuse belief with fact. Here's the truth. There is no secret master plan. There is no hidden elite whispering about XRP behind closed doors. What we have is a digital asset with a strong company behind it, real partnerships, and a solid use case. But also heavy competition, uncertain regulation, and a community that sometimes prefers fiction over facts. You owe it to yourself and your portfolio to separate signal from noise. And here's another layer most people are missing: competition. The cross-border payment space is heating up. Stellar, XLM, is making moves. Swift is testing blockchain integrations. New protocols like Quant and ISO 20022 compliant platforms are entering the arena. CBDCs are advancing rapidly, and many of them don't require a volatile token like XRP. They're looking at stablecoins, permission blockchains, and internal clearing systems that ask yourself, is XRP still as unique as it was in 2017? Or has the landscape caught up? And one more thing, XRP is not inflation-proof. While Ripple has escrowed large amounts of XRP and releases it gradually, that still puts downward pressure on the price. Every month, 1 billion XRP is unlocked. Even though Ripple doesn't always sell it, the potential for supply increases there. Compare that to Bitcoin's fixed supply and halving cycles, and you'll see why XRP's tokenomics don't always support explosive long-term gains. Now, with all that said, I want to be clear. I'm not saying XRP is worthless. I'm not saying sell everything and run. What I am saying is this: be careful, be balanced, be rational. If XRP is a small part of your portfolio as a speculative long-term hold, that's fine. If you've researched the tech, believe in Ripple, and understand the risks, even better. But if XRP is your entire strategy, if you've bet everything on a massive pump, or if your belief in the asset is based on TikTok riddles and Reddit hopium, then you're not investing. You're gambling. Diversify. Stay informed. Follow on-chain data, regulatory updates, and macro trends. Don't base your decisions on emotion or community pressure. Because here's the reality: XRP could still play a major role in global finance. But that journey might be slow. It might be regulatory heavy. And it might not reward holders the way many are expecting. My warning is simple. Check your assumptions. Don't hold blindly. Be proactive, not reactive. Because in this space, where things move at lightning speed and narratives can change overnight, the best investors aren't the loudest. They're the most prepared.